Hello and welcome to A Briefcase of Luxury, a place where we love to chat about all things related to life, learning, and luxury. So thank you so much for choosing to watch this video today. And if you've been around before, you know that I am a business professor by day and a luxe lover by night with an unhealthy obsession with handbags. Now I am going to warn you ahead of time, this is going to be another chatty video, so feel free to just let it play while you go about your day. Now I wasn't planning on making another video like this so soon, since I just recently shared a video about how much fun it can be to look over the financial reports of the companies we care about, like Chanel, Louis Vuitton, and Hermes. And by we, I mean other people who, like me, enjoy luxury shopping. And by companies we care about, I mean the luxury brands we don't think twice about throwing our hard-earned money at, even though they keep jacking up their prices on us. And by fun, I mean, well, I think it's fun. But again, I do think part of being a responsible and mindful consumer means understanding the types of companies we are voluntarily choosing to support. I did have so much fun making that video, and I'm glad you found it enjoyable yet educational as well. Now, I was a little bit hesitant to make that video because, let's be honest, business strategy can be an extremely dry topic, and when we are looking for luxury-related YouTube content to watch, well, chances are we're just wanting to look at nice, shiny things. So I wasn't sure how well educational videos would go over within the luxury content YouTube audience. It's like when you go to a whiskey distillery and some artisan's trying to teach you all about the art of whiskey making, and all you care about is the free tasting flight at the end of the tour so you can get wasted. But at the same time, maybe there's two things working in my favor here. One, not to rely on a fallacious appeal to authority argument, but I do feel comfortable talking about these topics because, well, that's my day job. So I sure as heck fire hope I know what I'm talking about, because if not, I should probably get fired. Yeah, so I can't tell you the best way to score a quota bag from Hermes because I haven't done that myself. You will never see a luxury unboxing frenzy on my channel because I don't make luxury unboxing frenzy type money, but I can essentially recycle the topics I frequently talk about in my classes and that I research on, and share those topics with you through the lens of what we all have in common, which is a love for all things luxury. That I feel fairly confident in my ability to do. So I'm open to suggestions if there is something business related you would like to learn about, especially when it comes to the luxury industry and you don't feel like going back to college or you don't want to take a proper online course, let me know down in the comments below. Now, second, the timing is kind of perfect, right? Every single purse lover out there has become a financial analyst or a business strategist overnight, and I love it. Again, just goes to show how motivated we can be to learn if it's the right type of motivation. So based on the new buzz about the somewhat unexpected and sudden Chanel price increases yet again, I felt like this warrants another conversation about the topic of business strategy, focusing specifically on Chanel, because it really does put my latest video on Hermes's price hikes into perspective, right? In which Hermes's price hikes were moderate or conservative by far, to say the least, compared to Chanel's most recent hikes of over 2-digit % increases. So while Hermes's price hikes are more taken for granted and our reactions to those are fairly subdued and passive, it seems like our reactions to Chanel's latest increases are quite the opposite. And if people haven't said that they were over Chanel then, well, they certainly seem to be now. So I love seeing what all the theories are that people have about the why. Why is Chanel so insistent on doing this and pissing off an entire segment of their market? Now note, I said market, not target market. If you are wanting to know the actual price increases for each Chanel product, then this video probably isn't for you. There are so many out there already that this would be repetitive. Again, I can put a screenshot to give you an idea, but like I said, I love how all of a sudden we are all math whizzes when it comes to calculating price hikes. No, instead, I want to just brainstorm about what this means and what context can we use to make meaning out of all of this, because at the end of the day, I can safely tell you that Chanel has their reasons. We just don't like what those reasons are. So please stay tuned to find out what those reasons are. And to do so, again, we will have a classroom moment to just set the scene and introduce a few key topics, starting with the concept of a free market. So let's first state the obvious. Chanel operates in a free market. If you've never heard of the term free market before, free market simply refers to an economic system in which the prices of goods and services are determined by supply and demand, and as such is determined by a market without any government intervention or regulation, so to speak. So in a free market, individuals like you and me, and businesses like Chanel, are free to produce and exchange goods and services with each other based on our own self-interest. So for instance, if you don't like how much you are getting paid at your current job, you are free to leave that job to find a similar job that pays you more. If you don't like how much you are paying for a certain item, you are free to find another similar item on the market that you can pay less for. So in essence, in a free market, buyers and sellers are free to negotiate and set prices based on certain market conditions. Now, this leads to competition among sellers, and while in most cases this competition drives down prices, in some cases, like luxury goods, this competition can actually have the opposite effect and drive prices up. And we'll see why here in a bit. But again, at the end of the day, you and me, as individual consumers in the market, are free to choose which products or services we want to buy, based on our own set of criteria and preferences, and that often includes budget constraints. So we have the freedom not to buy from Chanel and to instead buy from a substitute company if we wanted to. So while that explains more of the free aspect of free market, let's also briefly discuss the concept of a market, in which supply and demand are the two fundamental concepts that explain how market prices are set. So in this case, supply refers to the quantity of a product that Chanel is both willing and able to sell at a given price. So the basic supply principle states that the higher the market price, the more businesses are willing to supply that product, since they can essentially earn more. Now in this case, demand, on the other hand, refers to the quantity of a product or a service that consumers like you and I are willing and able to buy. For instance, a given Chanel product at a given price. So the basic demand principle states that the lower the price, the more consumers like you and I should be willing to buy a product. But we often think of luxury goods as violating some of these basic economic principles. For instance, in theory, supply principle states that Chanel should be willing to sell more at a higher price, yet they seem to artificially limit the quantity they are willing to sell, right? Same with Hermes. They create an artificial ceiling with their "oh, we don't have any bags available" mantra. That seems to violate a basic supply principle. On the other hand, demand principle states that the lower the price Chanel is willing to sell, the more you and I should buy it. But we all know that's quite simply not true to an extent. So if Chanel had a flash sale on their classic flaps and they're selling for $1,000 a pop, sure, we may go crazy for a hot minute, but it won't take long for that craze to stop. And in essence, we see this as a long-term consequence for brands who try to position themselves as an affordable luxury brand. So that's when this starts to get tricky when we're talking about luxury goods, right? And we often think luxury goods as violating these principles, but that's just not necessarily true. Instead, there are unseen factors that just aren't being accounted for. And in this case, this unseen factor is value. And most simply put, value refers to the worth or usefulness of something based on the benefits it provides or the satisfaction that it generates. So for most utility or non-luxury goods, when prices increase, we often see quantity demand decrease. But when it comes to luxury goods, there's an upward sloping demand curve instead. So it's in the opposite direction. This means that as the price of the good increases, the quantity demanded also increases, again, which is the opposite of what typically occurs with most goods, where when the price increases, the quantity demanded typically decreases. So this opposite direction is driven by value, in which value is derived from its scarcity in a high demand market. So for those goods in particular, the high price itself is a signal of one's ability to acquire a scarce but sought after good. So now that we understand the concept of a free market and how supply-demand principles affect luxury goods, let's talk about Chanel's price hikes and consumer claims that they've overdone it and it's going to turn people away from the brand, because let's be honest, we have had an overwhelmingly negative response to these price hikes. Again, I use the term "we" very loosely, since I doubt the Chanel-loving billionaire out there cares to the same extent that the broader market does. But let's just call it for what it is. Chanel can really do whatever Chanel wants to do, because at the end of the day, it's a free market. And I'm hard-pressed to think that they have plans to sabotage their own wealth and success as a company. Now, Chanel may be under new executive leadership, but I don't think they're under dumb leadership. So again, it's not like they haven't weighed the potential benefits of increased revenues and profit margins against the potential negative consequences of decreased demand, reduced market share, or even damage to their brand reputation. I'm more wired instead to believe that they have weighed the cost and determined that it's worth every single dollar of the new price increase. And here's why. Value from luxury goods are based on scarcity of supply and high demand. And so that is the equilibrium needed for the luxury goods market, and that is the premise of luxury pricing strategies. So the more scarce and more sought after, the higher the market price. And it's a bit of a chicken or egg thing, I get that. Higher prices make it more scarce and sought after, and vice versa, so it feeds into each other. And maybe, just maybe, under Chanel's new leadership, it's time for a strategic reset for the company to fix all of these moving parts. Until the market collectively decides that Chanel is no longer sought after, only then at that point will the brand lose value. So I guess at the end of the day, simply put, these price increases is simply what the market is demanding at this moment in time. So how does this affect me? Well, it really doesn't. As you can tell, this here, the Chanel wallet on chain, is the only Chanel item I have in my collection. Hence, it's the only one you ever see whenever I talk about Chanel. So I personally never have had a giant pull to their bags or company in general. To me, they're just another company and they lack some sort of storytelling that draws me in like some other brands have. But I guess the one thing I do find super intriguing about Chanel are all the controversies in their history that we all have just swept under the rug. So if you guys are interested, I'd love to make a video talking about some of the controversies that we've forgotten about when it comes to so many different luxury brands. I mean, especially in light of all the hate Balenciaga has gotten for one bad marketing campaign. If that's something that sounds interesting to you, let me know down below. So if you are one of those that are mad or upset about the price increases, I get it. I totally get it. But there's really only two things you can do moving forward. You can continue to buy their products, which means you may grumble the whole way to the cashier, but at the end of the day, you're still willing to pay the market price, which means you still see value in their products. Granted, you may not be able to buy the products at the same rate as you would have in the past, but you're still buying their products. Or you could choose not to buy their products moving forward, in which case you no longer see the value in the product. And just know this may or may not affect the company at all. Instead, you've just increased the scarcity of their product. And as long as there remains a large enough market, a large enough demand to signal that the product is still sought after, then there will be people willing to pay for this new added level of scarcity. That's just the way a free market works. So simply put, Chanel is probably worried about their brand from a scarcity to demand perspective, and a price fix is one way to regain balance. On some level, I can hear Chanel saying, "You'll thank me later down the road," because as soon as Chanel is no longer scarce or in demand, then, well, it will no longer be Chanel. And the consequences of that are much worse for the company. And that's another long, chatty video for you, but I do hope you found it insightful or educational, or at least just food for thought, right? So how are those price hikes going to affect you and your aspirations to buy from Chanel? I'm curious to know, so please let me know down in the comments below. Thank you again so much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you next time. Until then, class dismissed.